Robert Greene and mastering power. Let's talk about it. So Robert Greene's concept of mastering power, as outlined in the 48 Laws of Power, emphasizes subtle manipulation, patience, and strategy. The key to his philosophy is understanding human nature, knowing people's desires, fears, and motivations, and using that knowledge to influence outcomes without appearing controlling. Greene advises never outshine those in authority instead of making them feel secure while quietly building alliances and influence. He emphasizes the importance of timing, acting decisively when the moment is right, but also retreating when necessary. Mastering power means being adaptable, disguising one's true intentions, and always playing the long game. Greene's approach focuses on achieving dominance through indirect means, allowing power to come naturally rather than seizing it forcefully. So let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. Mastering Power, Story 1. Now Sarah worked at a large corporation, surrounded by ambitious colleagues, eager for promotions. She understood Robert Greene's lesson, quote, never outshine the master, end of quote. While others rushed to impress the boss, Sarah observed quietly. She identified key influencers, learning their motivations, and offered subtle support without taking credit. Instead of openly competing, Sarah built alliances behind the scenes, resolving conflicts and making others look good. She anticipated her boss's needs, offering solutions before problems arose. Slowly, her influence grew, and her co-workers relied on her without realizing she was orchestrating the outcomes. Now, when a leadership role opened, Sarah was the natural choice. She had mastered power through patience, understanding, and subtle influence, securing her position without ever needing to boast. Further defining mastering power. Now, in Robert Greene's interview with Tom, apologies, I can't pronounce the second word, on impact theory, he emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and introspection as foundational steps in mastering power. Greene highlights that true power comes from understanding your unique strengths and weaknesses. He stresses the need to tune out distractions, focus inwardly, and deeply examine what drives and motivates you, as well as recognizing your darker impulses, such as envy and aggression, and transform them into productive energy. Greene also discusses how mastering power requires humility and the ability to navigate complex human emotions, especially by acknowledging and leveraging one's flaws instead of denying them. By cultivating self-awareness and channeling negative emotions into purposeful action, Greene suggests that individuals can build lasting influence. Mastering Power, Story 2. Now Tom entered the competitive music industry as an independent artist, recognizing early on that the traditional route to success, which was relying on record labels, was limiting. He applied the principles of mastering power by building his own music empire. Instead of seeking validation from major industry players, he used social media to connect directly with the fans, controlling his brand and narrative. Tom studied the business intricacies of music production, distribution, and marketing, slowly taking ownership of every aspect of his career. By focusing on independence, he leveraged technology and streaming platforms, bypassing gatekeepers and generating revenue on his own terms. His approach mirrored Robert Greene's concept of power, mastering the art of patience, alliances, and control, eventually becoming a major force in the industry. Now, within this story, we can see the value of power and the relationship between independence and power. We can also see that there are various things to master in acquiring power. Mastering Power, Story 3. Now, Robert Greene became powerful as an author by mastering the art of observation and deep analysis of historical figures and power dynamics. Before becoming a writer, Robert Greene worked over 80 jobs, gaining rich life experiences and studying human behavior. His breakthrough came with the 48 Laws of Power, where he distilled centuries of history and philosophy into practical lessons of influence and strategy. Greene's ability to simplify complex ideas into digestible, timeless principles resonated with a wide audience, including celebrities and entrepreneurs. His works, rooted in historical examples, offered readers actionable advice on mastering power, seduction, and human nature. By consistently tapping into universal themes of power and control, Greene built a loyal following, establishing himself as a thought leader in self-mastery and in influence. So here is some additional insight. There is a lot of questions to ask here. For example, is power positive or is it negative? Or can power be positive or negative, depending on the individual's decisions? How does one master power successfully? How does one master power successfully? And what does power look like exactly? Robert Greene states that humility is important to mastering power. Now, when we define humility, it is, quote, the quality of having a modest or low view on one's importance, end of quote. In one sense, humility is conflicting with power, but in another sense, maybe it balances power out. Also, will the shadows of self allow us to see and grasp humility if we are power hungry? And there are other nuanced questions. How do we manage complex human emotions? How do we manage complex human emotions? Of course, some may disagree with the premise that human emotions are complex, but considering that all humans come from different environments, how can we fully understand everyone? Also, there is the variable that humans and environments change, and this adds another layer of complexity. So here are some points. There are different types of power, as it could be trying to be a manager in a company, trying to be a CEO in a company. It could be building your own company for financial freedom. Alternatively, you may be seeking power in your personal and professional relationships. This could be ownership and or entrepreneurship. Most of us seek power, but not many of us know how to get power and sustain it. Why humans desire power? So the final question is, why do humans desire power? Humans desire power due to deep evolutionary roots and social dynamics. In early human societies, power often meant survival. Those who held influence over resources such as food, shelter, and mates were more likely to ensure their survival and pass on their genes. Over time, the ability to assert dominance or leadership became a key evolutionary advantage. Power also allowed individuals to protect their groups from external threats and further reinforcing its importance in human evolution. In a political context, the pursuit of power reflects our need for control and security. Humans are inherently social creatures, living in hierarchies where influence often dictates status and resources. In modern times, political power symbolizes the ability to shape societal structures and create laws and create or control economic resources. This desire for control taps into primal instincts to ensure security and stability, both personally and for the community. Ultimately, the desire for power is a mix of survival instincts, social status, and the human drive for security and influence over one's environment. Political leaders, for example, seek power not just for personal gain, but often to shape the world according to their values, showcasing how power and purpose are intertwined. 3 life-changing ideas from Robert Greene. Now, who is Robert Greene? Robert Greene is a well-known American author, and his educational background was in classical studies. This is an interesting degree that examines literature, art, civilizations, and ancient societies. Now, his book, 48 Laws of Power, was definitely a breakthrough, no doubt about it. And this book spoke about manipulation and influence, and it gained a following amongst politicians and business leaders. Of course, Robert Greene has other books, and these other books include Mastery, the 50th Law, Daily Laws, The Laws of Human Nature, etc. Now, Robert Greene often makes reference to the darker elements of human psychology, and he embraces the notion of a cruel world. He may not use those specific terms, but the sentiment is very, very clear in his work. Now, Robert Greene also did a Google presentation on his book Mastery, and he also did a TED talk about the key to transform yourself. Now, mastery is another key message from Robert Greene. So as we can see, Robert Greene has great credibility, he has great visibility, and this video will explore some of his ideas that could potentially be life-changing. So let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. Idea 1, win through actions, never argument. Now, Robert Greene addresses this idea in his book, 48 Laws of Power. So let me tell you a story. So there was this guy, let's call him Jack, and he was reserved, but he was also an artist. Now, being a reserved introvert, he did not speak much because that was natural to him. But instead of talking, Jack would work on his craft, making these stunning, absolutely stunning murals. These were real eye-catching pieces of art. And he never really spoke about his artwork. He always wanted the art to do the talking, figuratively speaking. He just felt a compulsion to do this. It was his purpose, it was his passion. And he would use social media to reveal his incredible work. And these visual experiences, they gained followers and they gained traction. And the more murals he produced, the more his art spoke to his people. As his digital resume grew, so did his commissions, and he made considerable amounts of money. But he never spoke through words. He always spoke through the experience of his murals. His incredible art was his form of communication. And we can learn from this story. We can really learn from this story the importance of speaking through actions. Now, a businessman can talk to you and they can tell you that he or she generates millions in revenue. But if we go to company's house and look at their financial records, that will tell us the real story. And some of us tell stories that are not true to make us look bigger than what we are. Some would say that politicians embody this because they say the perfect words, they're linguistically brilliant, but the actions, they don't match their verbal dexterity. Matter of fact, the politician will always win through arguments, but in the battle of actions, they rarely, if ever, show up. So who would you prefer to be? The politician that only speaks through words, or the artist who only speaks through their actions? Robert Greene understands the power of speaking through actions, which is referenced in his book, 48 Laws of Power. But the real question is, do you understand the power of speaking through actions? So idea number 2, self-reliance. Now, Robert Greene talks a lot. He talks a lot about self-reliance. And this is inspired by the American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, the concept of his self-reliance was partly due to non-conformity and to trust yourself. So that's two elements, non-conformity and to trust yourself. Obviously, there was other elements as well. But in a traditional sense, self-reliance is, quote, a reliance on one's own powers and resources rather than those of others, end of quote. So let's break this down and let's describe this concept in a short story. So there was this woman, let's call her Ava. Now, Ava was a musician. She was a really good musician, but she struggled to get her songs heard. Unfortunately, this is a common theme in the music industry. Why is that? It's because it's a ruthless, yes, ruthless industry. And yes, it's packaged with smiley faces, but that's not the reality, I assure you. Now let's get back to Ava. So Ava had a self-reliant mind, and because of this, she started her own music publishing company. She learned about the monetary and legal elements of the music industry. So she built her following, she had her own newsletter, and she brought in artists to develop her company. So through persistence, self-reliance, mastery, she built a thriving, yes, a thriving business. Now, she saw a gap in the market where she could benefit artists, but also create her own self-reliance. She created a success that was independent of the music industry, independent of the ruthless music industry, and her publishing company was the product of that, because not only did she own the company, she gave a great service to her artists. Now, self-reliance is important, but of course, we must remember that we rely on things. We rely on our hearts to beat, for our brains to function effectively. We rely on oxygen to breathe, and we may rely on our partners to build on our weaknesses and to develop our strengths. And Robert Greene understands self-reliance because in one sense, the entrepreneur aims to be self-reliant, because instead of a company providing you a job, you're trying to build resources to create your own job. And this is effectively what Robert Greene did. Interestingly, Robert Greene stated the following, quote, "I'm a big believer in being an entrepreneur. It's easy for me to say that because I work for myself and I am someone who likes that process. You have control over your own destiny." End of quote. And if I'm honest, self-reliance is extremely difficult, but also extremely rewarding if successful. In the self-improvement genre or context, self-reliance is essential because we are relying on the ability of our minds to find solutions and evolve in a positive way. Robert Greene sees the power of self-reliance as it avoids the pitfalls of dependency. And dependency, of course, can be a bad thing. But one should know that this is a hard path. It's a hard path. But if you succeed, the treasure is not only material, it's also psychological. Idea 3, reality and adaptability. There are two important ideas here that Robert Greene is articulating. The first is the concept of cold realism. The second concept is adaptability. Now, when we talk about cold realism, we are effectively talking about the harsh reality of life, And this, let's be honest, is the elephant in the room. In a figuratively way, we don't always see evil, but that does not mean that evil does not exist. Let's give a quick analogy. We don't physically see the atoms. We don't, but we know that the atoms exist. Now, the second part, adaptability or effective adaptability, this is so important, and we can describe this in the context of human survival. Matter of fact, humans have survived because of adaptability, and part of that adaptability would have been advanced cognitive abilities over other animals, which is effectively the ability to solve complex problems and assess information. Additional to this, Homo sapiens had tool making, which was a total innovation. Think of this, what other animals create tools to attack prey? And the crafting of tools from wood or stone allowed them not just to hunt prey, but to clear paths, create traps for animals, and build shelters. They also had the invention of social structures, and this is sharing information, sharing resources, and dividing labor. All of this requires adaptability. And here's a question. If Homo sapiens never adapted, would we be here today? That is a great question, and some may argue it's an obvious question. But let's tell another story to emphasize the point of adaptability. And let's call this person Sophia. So Sophia, she was an entrepreneur that sold cakes. She had a traditional recipe, but the high sugar content was not attracting enough customers. So after some deliberation and some market research, Sophia realized today's customer was more health conscious. So what did she do? Sophia adapted her recipe, changing the sugar for honey, and created gluten-friendly and vegan options. This took time and it took effort, but eventually Sophia had adapted her cakes accordingly. And by doing this, she accommodated the new customers. With these new options, good marketing, and a great product, Sophia was able to attract the new health-conscious customer. Just like the Homo sapiens in the jungle, Sophia effectively adapted, and her effective adaptation gave her a thriving business. And the important point here is that her adaptation was essential for Sophia to have that thriving business. And Robert Greene, of course, advocates this adaptability, and it is an essential lesson. Now, in the business context, you may have to adapt your product or adapt your service. Maybe, just maybe, you need to adapt your marketing strategy, or maybe you need to change your business or understand your customers more. There are so many variables. And when we look at the digital economy, it's a reminder that nothing stays the same. Robert Greene knows about adaptability, but the real question is, do you understand adaptability? And more importantly, do you know how to implement it effectively? Let's talk about Robert Greene and Machiavelli. This video is to provide awareness on the Machiavelli influence on Robert Greene. Now, this is education mixed with entertainment, so let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. Who is Machiavelli? Who is Machiavelli? So we know about Robert Greene. We know who Robert Greene is. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power, Mastery, Daily Laws, etc. And he is very influential and had a cultural impact and is respected. But who is Machiavelli? Well, Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat, philosopher and writer, best known for his political treatise, The Prince, written in 1513. He is considered the father of modern-day political science, advocating for pragmatic, sometimes ruthless, approaches to power and governance. Now, Machiavelli believed that rulers should prioritize the stability and strength of their state, often using manipulation and force when necessary. His name has since become associated with cunning, strategic politics, with the term Machiavellian referring to deceptive or unscrupulous political tactics. So why is Machiavelli's worldview so dark? Good question. Machiavelli's worldview is often considered dark because of his realistic, pragmatic approach to politics, which contrasts with the idealism of earlier thinkers. Living during a time of political instability in Renaissance Italy, he observed firsthand the brutal power struggles between states, monarchs, and the church. In The Prince, Machiavelli argued that rulers must somewhat employ deceit, manipulation, and even cruelty to maintain power and protect their states. He believed that moral principles could be sacrificed if they interfered with political survival. So he has a focus on human selfishness, unpredictability, and the necessity for harsh tactics, which reflects a pessimistic view on human nature. This perspective, valuing results over ideals, leads to a perception of his philosophy as dark and ruthless, though deeply rooted in the political realities of his time. So what Robert Greene books are influenced by Machiavelli? Robert Greene books, particularly the 48 Laws of Power and the 33 Strategies of War, are heavily influenced by Machiavelli's ideas. Greene, like Machiavelli, focuses on power dynamics, strategy, and human behavior, exploring how to navigate political and social structures through manipulation and calculated decision-making. In the 48 Laws of Power, Greene outlines principles that echo Machiavelli's pragmatism, such as the need for deception, controlling appearances and exploiting weaknesses. This mirrors Machiavelli's views in The Prince on how rulers must act strategically to maintain and control to achieve their goals. The 33 Strategies of War is also inspired by Machiavelli's emphasis on military tactics, applying these ideas to personal and professional conflicts in modern life. So what is Machiavelli's influence on popular culture? Machiavelli's influence on popular culture is vast, particularly through his work The Prince, which has shaped modern ideas about power, politics, and leadership. His name is often associated with cunning and ruthless strategies, and the term Machiavellian describes individuals who manipulate and deceive for personal gain. In literature, Machiavellian characters are common, such as Shakespeare's Othello and Edmund in King Lear. Both use deceit to achieve their aims. His ideas also resonate in political thrillers and dramas like House of Cards, where characters employ manipulation and power plays. In music, artists like Tupac Shakur adopted the moniker Machiavelli, reflecting an interest in Machiavelli's ideas about power and survival in tough environments, showcasing his influence beyond traditional political discourse. Robert Greene on wearing a mask. So Robert Greene's ideas of wearing a mask refers to concealing one's true intentions and emotions to gain an advantage, as outlined in the 48 Laws of Power. Greene argues that by hiding your true self and adapting to circumstances, you can manipulate perceptions and avoid unnecessary conflict. This strategy prevents others from anticipating your moves, giving you control in power dynamics. This concept aligns closely with Machiavelli's belief in the prince. Machiavelli advises rulers to appear virtuous while being prepared to act immorally when necessary. He emphasized that perception often matters more than reality in maintaining power. Both thinkers see the strategic concealment of one's motives as essential for success in competitive environments, reinforcing the idea that appearances can be manipulated for personal and political gain. What else did Machiavelli believe? Let's explain this idea in a story. So in a corporate setting, Sarah, a mid-level manager, learns that two colleagues are competing for a promotion that she wants. Both are more experienced and her chances are slim. Instead of waiting passively, Sarah decides to act boldly, applying Machiavelli's idea that fortune favors the bold. She arranges a meeting with the company's CEO, presenting an innovative plan for expanding into new markets. Her direct approach catches the CEO's attention, as neither of her rivals had taken such decisive action. Impressed by her initiative, the CEO grants Sarah more responsibility, putting her in a favorable position for the promotion. By taking a bold risk rather than playing it safe, Sarah exemplifies Machiavelli's belief that those who seize opportunities often succeed, even in competitive environments. So why does Robert Greene like Machiavelli so much? Robert Greene admires Machiavelli because both share a pragmatic view of power and human nature. Greene, like Machiavelli, sees power as a game that requires strategic thinking, manipulation and understanding human behavior. In the 48 Laws of Power, Greene often references Machiavelli's advice on how to maintain control and influence others. Machiavelli's candid approach to politics, especially in The Prince, resonates. It resonates with Greene's belief that more ideas often conflict with the realities of power. Both thinkers value realism over idealism. That's important. Both thinkers value realism over idealism, advocating for a flexible, adaptive approach to achieving success. Greene's book echoes Machiavelli's emphasis on being shrewd, calculating, and willing to bend moral codes when necessary. This shared focus on survival in competitive environments explains Greene's deep appreciation for Machiavelli's ideas. Why is Machiavelli still relevant today? Machiavelli remains relevant today because his insights into power, leadership, and human behavior are timeless. His emphasis on strategy, adaptability, and pragmatism in achieving goals mirrors modern political and corporate dynamics, where success often requires calculated decisions, flexibility, and understanding the complex nature of influence and control. Robert Greene and the Pygmalion effect. Now, Robert Greene is obviously a popular author that wrote the 48 Laws of Power. So we will discuss how Robert Greene visualizes the Pygmalion effect, and we will discuss the Pygmalion effect as an individual entity. So we're going to tell some stories, ask questions, and make some observations. Now, this is education and entertainment. So let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. Part 1. What is Robert Greene's interpretation of the Pygmalion effect? Robert Greene's interpretation of the Pygmalion effect aligns with his broader view of human nature and power dynamics. He sees it as a psychological phenomenon where people internalize expectations others place upon them, often subconsciously or unconsciously altering their behavior to meet those expectations. In his work, The 48 Laws of Power, Greene emphasizes the strategic use of this effect, suggesting that by setting high expectations or projecting certain beliefs about others, capabilities can manipulate or inspire them to raise those standards, thereby gaining influence and control over outcomes. Part 2. Sam's story. So Sam, a new teacher, believed deeply in the potential of his struggling students. Ignoring warnings from colleagues, he set high expectations, especially for Marcus, a student labelled as lazy. Instead of reprimanding Marcus for poor effort, Sam praised his intelligence and potential, telling him he could achieve great things. Slowly, Marcus began to believe it too. His work improved, his attitude shifted, and he became more engaged in class. Sam's unwavering belief in Marcus's ability transformed him, illustrating the powerful impact of the Pygmalion effect, where expectations shape reality. Part 3. How can a leader use the Pygmalion effect to improve performance? A leader can use the Pygmalion effect to improve performance by setting high expectations and expressing genuine belief in their team's abilities. By consistently reinforcing positive feedback and focusing on potential, they encourage employees to meet these expectations, fostering greater confidence, effort, and overall productivity. Part 4. How does the Pygmalion effect contribute to self-fulfilling prophecy? The Pygmalion effect contributes to self-fulfilling prophecy by shaping individuals' behavior to align with expectations placed upon them. Because when someone believes in another's potential, their positive reinforcement influences that person to improve and succeed, fulfilling the original belief. Conversely, low expectations can lead to underperformance. In both cases, expectations create the conditions for their own realization, turning assumptions into reality through changes in attitude and behavior. Part 5. Can the Pygmalion effect negatively impact someone? Yes, the Pygmalion effect can negatively affect someone, particularly when low expectations are placed on them. So if a person, such as a manager, teacher, or authority figure, assumes that someone is incapable or will perform poorly, these negative expectations can certainly influence how they treat that individual. So over time, the person internalizes these low expectations, believing they are inadequate or incapable, which can lead to decreased motivation, effort, and ultimately poor performance. This reinforces the original belief, creating a downward cycle. When people sense that others expect them to fail, they may feel disencouraged or disengaged, which impacts their self-esteem. For example, an employee who is consistently overlooked for challenging projects because their boss doesn't believe in their potential might stop trying to excel, feeling that their efforts are futile. This can create a harmful environment where the individual's confidence erodes and their ability to succeed diminishes due to external perceptions. In this way, the Pygmalion effect becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy with negative consequences. Just as positive expectations can elevate performance, negative or limited expectations can lead to underachievement, limiting a person's growth and opportunities. It highlights the importance of setting fair and constructive expectations in leadership roles. Part 6. Tell me about the 4 factors of the Pygmalion effect. The 4 factors of the Pygmalion effect are climate, input, response, opportunity, and feedback. Leaders or teachers create a positive climate of support, provide more challenging input, give individuals greater opportunities to respond or participate, and offer specific constructive feedback. These elements shape performance and behavior based on expectations. Part 7. A university story. At a large university, Professor Sophia was assigned a freshman seminar of students known for struggling in their first year. Unlike others who focused on their limitations, she decided to apply the 4 factors of the Pygmalion effect to elevate their performance. She began by fostering a positive climate, greeting students warmly, encouraging participation, and making them feel like they belonged in the academic environment. This shifted their mindset from insecurity to confidence. Next, she increased the input by offering more challenging readings and discussions, believing they were capable of higher level thinking. In class, she provided great opportunities to respond, inviting everyone to contribute to debates and group projects. This not only boosted engagement, but also reinforced the idea that their thoughts and contributions were valuable. Finally, Professor Sophia gave detailed constructive feedback on their work. She pointed out specific strengths and areas for growth, encouraging continuous development. By the end of the semester, the students not only improved their grades, but also developed a newfound belief in their abilities, thanks to her consistent use of the Pygmalion effect. Part 8. Why is Robert Greene's Pygmalion effect good for society? Robert Greene's interpretation of the Pygmalion effect is good for society because it encourages leaders to set high expectations, fostering growth, confidence and achievement. By believing in others' potential, individuals can rise to meet those expectations, creating a culture of empowerment, self-improvement and positive societal transformation. So that's the end of the video. If you want to support the channel, like, subscribe and watch the content. I repeat, if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe and watch the content. Now, as some of you know, I have a social enterprise called Neuroexpression, which is about empowering neurodivergent people. If you want to know more about it, then why not consider downloading the free PDF, What is Dyspraxia, from my website, and the link will be in the description. And with that being said, I sincerely hope this video provided value.